Most men wait for the perfect moment. I waited until I became the right man. There is a difference. The perfect moment is about scenery. The right man is about everything underneath it. The honesty, the presence, the willingness to stop running and finally turn around and face the person who deserved your full attention every single day you gave her half of it instead. I was absent in the way that leaves no marks on the outside. But she felt it. And I knew she felt it. Today, that ends. Today I am asking the one question that cannot be asked from a distance. If you're still here, stay with me. I'm going to reveal something at the end that you don't want to miss. And if you're interested, subscribe to my channel. There is a particular kind of absence that does not look like absence at all. That is the kind I lived in. I was there at the table. I was there in the same house, sometimes even in the same conversation. But the deepest part of me was always pointed somewhere else, toward whatever problem I believed needed solving, toward whatever launch was coming, toward whatever I told myself the world required of me right now. I gave you proximity. I gave you logistics. I gave you the version of myself that showed up physically and then quietly left through a door you could not see. You could not point at me and say, "He is gone." I was right there. But the part of you that needed to be met, the part of you that reached out not for answers, but just to be received, that part reached into empty air. And I let it. Not because I did not care, but because I did not yet understand that caring without presence is not enough. It is not even close to enough. I want you to understand what that kind of absence does to a person over time. It does not arrive loudly. It does not come in one day and announce itself. It settles. It moves in slowly, the way cold air fills a room, not all at once, but gradually, until one morning you realize you have been cold for a long time, and you stop noticing. That is what my being half present did. It did not break things in one moment. It let things grow quiet in ways that should not have been quiet. Your laughter, for instance. There were times your laughter would fill a room, and I would hear it from somewhere inside my own thoughts and think, "Yes, that is good," and then return to wherever my mind had gone. I heard you. I did not truly receive you. There is a difference, and I know it now the way you only know something after you have paid for not knowing it. Presence is not proximity. That is the first true thing I learned when I finally stopped long enough to understand what I had been doing. You can be close to a person every single day and still be a stranger to the interior of their life. You can sleep in the same room with someone and never once understand what they are carrying. I was close. I was not present. And the cost of that distinction is something I am still learning to measure, not in losses I can name easily, but in the small moments I was not there for that I can never go back and fill. The look on your face when you said something that mattered to you, and I was already thinking about something else. The silence that followed. The way you learned, slowly, not to expect the full version of me, and how that adjustment, that quiet lowering of hope, was my doing. I caused that. I want to be honest about that without making it a performance of guilt. I am not here to stand in the wound and ask you to watch me feel bad about it. I am here to be different. That is the only apology that means anything. What it looks like to be here. Truly here. I have been learning that too. It is not dramatic. It does not come with announcements or gestures designed to prove something. It is smaller than that. It is looking at you when you speak, and not just hearing words, but listening for what is underneath them. What you are really telling me, what you actually need. It is letting a silence sit without filling it with something useful. It is asking how you are, and then waiting, genuinely waiting, for the real answer instead of the easy one. It is noticing when you are tired before you say you are tired. It is being in the room in a way that makes the room feel different, not because I have done something extraordinary, but because I am simply, fully, here. I spent years believing that what I built was the measure of who I was. That if what I made was large enough, meaningful enough, lasting enough, then I had done my part. I thought love could be earned through achievement the way anything else could. Build the right thing, and the people around you will feel valued. That is not how love works. That is not even close to how love works. The woman sitting across from you does not need a monument. She needs a man who looks at her like she is the thing worth looking at. She needs to feel that when she is in the room has more in it, not less, that her presence registers, that it lands somewhere, that it matters to someone specific who is paying attention specifically to her. I was not that man. I want to be honest about that. I was building things for the world while the person in front of me was quietly wondering if she counted. She counted. You counted. I just did not know how to make you feel that with my actual presence rather than my intentions. and intentions that stay inside a man's head do nothing for the woman waiting to feel them. Here is what I know now that I did not know then. The most complex thing I have ever tried to build is nothing compared to the complexity of being truly present with another person. A rocket requires precision, planning, 1,000 exact calculations. But being present with someone you love requires something harder. It requires you to stop calculating altogether. It requires you to be in a moment without also managing it, to be with a person without also trying to optimize anything about the situation. I was a man who optimized everything, including, I am ashamed to say, some of the moments that deserve nothing but stillness. I would take something quiet and try to make it useful, take something soft and try to make it efficient. That is not presence. That is management. And you cannot manage your way into genuine closeness with another person. You can only arrive there. And arriving means putting down everything you are holding. I am putting it down. Not as a statement. Not as a promise made with words. You will not believe words, and you should not, because words from an absent man are just the latest thing he is saying while part of him is somewhere else. What I am offering is not a speech. What I am offering is a change in direction so complete that you will feel it not in what I say, but in how it feels to be around me, in whether I ask and then listen, in whether I stay with you in a hard moment rather than going looking for the solution, in whether I can sit still beside you without the stillness becoming a problem I need to solve. This is what I have been learning to do, and I am not finished learning. But I have started. That is real. The starting is real. There is something I have come to understand about the way absence works on a relationship. It does not just remove things, it teaches the other person to need less. And that is perhaps the most painful part of what I did. You adjusted. You became more self-sufficient in the spaces I left empty because you had to. You learned to carry certain things alone because I was not consistently there to help carry them. And that adjustment, that quiet building of walls just thick enough to keep the loneliness manageable, that was my making. I do not say this to drown either of us in the weight of it. I say it because I want you to know that I understand what my absence trained you to do. And I want to be here long enough, consistently enough, for those adjustments to slowly stop being necessary. For you to slowly, over real time, be able to put down the things you have been carrying alone. That is not something I can ask of you on day one. That is something I have to earn by showing up differently on day one, and day two, and every day that follows until the pattern becomes unmistakable. Presence is not a single decision. It is 1,000 small decisions made over time in the same direction, each one building on the last. Each one either confirming or denying the larger truth of whether I am actually here. I understand that now, and I have made the first of those decisions, which is to stop pretending that being in proximity is the same as being present. To stop letting my mind leave the room, even when my body stays. To stop missing the moments that matter because I was somewhere else inside my own thoughts. The decision is made. Now comes the practice. And I want to practice it with you. The thing about stillness is that I never trusted it. For most of my life, stillness felt like a warning sign, like a signal that something had stopped that should still be moving. If I was quiet, I was probably behind. If I was resting, something was slipping. I had built an entire life on the belief that motion was proof of purpose, that the faster I moved, the more I mattered. And so I was always moving. Always. Even when I sat down, something in me was standing up and walking. You felt that. I know you felt that. Not because you said it in those exact words, but because I watched the way you sometimes watch me, the way a person watches a river from the bank, knowing the water is never going to stop and hold still long enough to be held. You watched me the way someone watches something they love, but cannot quite reach. And I kept moving, because I did not yet know that stillness was not the absence of purpose. It was the deepest form of it. I am learning to be still. Not motionless, not empty. Still in the way that means I am fully here with no part of me pulling toward the door. Still in the way that means when you are speaking, the whole of me is receiving what you are saying, not just the surface of it, not just the information, but the weight behind it, the feeling underneath it, the thing you are really trying to tell me that does not always come out in the words themselves. That kind of stillness is not passive. It is the most active thing I know how to do right now. It asks more of me than anything I have built. It requires me to hold my own restlessness without letting it escape into the room between us. And I am choosing to do that. Every time I feel that pull to move, to plan, to fix, to go, I am choosing to stay instead. Not forever, just for this moment. And then the next. There was a version of my absence that showed up as helpfulness. I want to name that one specifically, because it is easy to miss. Whenever you would come to me with something that was hurting you, something that mattered, something soft that you were trusting me enough to put in my hands, I would immediately go looking for the solution. I would analyze. I would suggest. I would try to make the problem smaller as fast as possible. What I did not do was simply sit in it with you. What I did not do was let what you were feeling land in me before I started trying to clear it away. I thought that was love, taking the weight from you as quickly as I could. But what I was actually doing was making the conversation about my ability to solve things, rather than your need to be heard. You did not always need me to fix anything. Sometimes you needed me to feel it with you. To not move. To not reach immediately for the answer. To just be there. Fully. Inside the hard moment alongside you, without trying to make it shorter. I failed at that more times than I want to count. And I'm going to stop failing at it. Not by trying harder to fix less, but by actually learning what you need before I assume I already know. This is what presence looks like when it replaces that kind of absence. I sit down. I look at you. I do not pick up anything. I do not begin solving. I say, tell me. And then I mean it. The whole invitation, not just the surface of it. And when you tell me, I receive it. I let it matter to me before I say a single word back. I let there be space after you finish speaking. Because space is not emptiness. It is proof that I am still thinking about what you said, still holding it, still with you inside it. That space, the pause that used to make me restless, is now the most honest thing I can give you. It says, what you just said is worth sitting inside for a moment. It says, I am not rushing past your life to get back to mine. You have had to repeat yourself before. I know that. You have said something important and watched it land on the surface of me and slide off. And then a few days later you said it again, quieter this time, the way people say things when they have already half given up on being heard. I noticed that. I noticed the decrease in volume, the slight pulling back, the editing of what you were going to say before you said it, because some part of you had already calculated how much of it would actually reach me. That editing, that self-censoring you did to protect yourself from the particular disappointment of speaking into empty space. I caused that. I want to be specific about it, because I do not want to speak in generalities about my own failures. Generalities are comfortable. They let a man acknowledge wrongdoing without truly reckoning with the shape of it. This is the shape of it. You made yourself smaller in the conversation because I had not shown up big enough in my listening. And that is on me. Completely. What I am offering now is the full version of my attention. Not divided. Not borrowed from somewhere else. Not given to you in between two other things. When I am with you, I am with you. My eyes are with you. My mind is with you. The part of me that used to be 3 steps ahead is learning to stay at the same step you are on, moving at the pace of the moment we are actually in. That is a different kind of discipline than anything I have trained myself for. It is the discipline of not outrunning the present, of not treating right now as a corridor that leads somewhere more important. Right now, where you are, what you are feeling, what you are carrying, what you need from me. This is the most important thing. Not because I am saying it is, because I am acting as though it is, in every moment, with every choice about where to put my eyes and where to put my thoughts. Here is the philosophical truth I have been arriving at through the specific cost of what I lost by not being present. Time does not measure itself in minutes. It measures itself in moments of genuine contact. A man can be alive for decades and have very few of those moments if he is not paying attention. And the tragedy is that the moments of genuine contact, the real ones, the ones where two people are actually reaching each other, those are not waiting somewhere in the future. They are in the ordinary, quiet, unremarkable seconds of an ordinary day. They are in the Tuesday afternoon when nothing is happening, and you make a small sound that means you are content. And I hear it, and it fills something in me. They are in the way you hold your coffee cup. They are in the sentence you start, and then change your mind about. All of that, all of it, is the life. Not the launches, not the headlines. The texture of being with someone, day after day, paying enough attention that nothing small about them goes unwitnessed. I missed years of that texture. I want to spend whatever time I have left living inside of it. And I want to spend it with you specifically. Not the idea of you. Not a version of you that I have constructed from what is convenient for me. You, with your full weight, your history, your way of seeing things that is entirely your own, your patience that I did not always deserve, your dignity that never bent even when I was not giving you reasons to stand tall. I see you. Not partially. not on my way to seeing something else. I see you in the way that means you are the destination, not a stop along the way. That is new. I want to be honest that it is new. I want to be honest that for a long time you were not receiving the full force of my seeing. And I want you to feel the difference between then and now, not because I am telling you the difference exists, but because you can sense it in the way I look at you, in the way I ask, in the way I stay. There is something that happens to a woman who has been loved partially for a long time. She begins to carry a kind of quiet endurance. Not bitterness, something quieter than that. A calibration. A learned expectation that love is something you receive in pieces rather than in full. That the full version of someone is always reserved for something else, someone else, some other demand more urgent than her. I know that calibration is in you. I put it there, piece by piece, through years of arriving in the room, but not all the way. I am not asking you to immediately undo it. That would be unfair of me, to create a wound, and then ask you to heal quickly, because I am ready for you to be healed. That is not how this works. What I am asking is simpler. Let me show you, over real time, that the calibration is no longer necessary. Let me be consistent enough, present enough, attentive enough, that slowly, on your timeline, at your pace, you stop bracing for the version of me that was only halfway here. Because that version is gone. I left him somewhere back in all that motion. What walked through the door this time is different. I used to speak in the language of the future. Everything I said pointed forward, toward what was coming, what was possible, what we were building toward. I was fluent in the future. What I did not know how to speak was the present. The plain, unhurried language of right now. The language that says, I am here. This moment is enough. You are enough. I do not need this to be anything other than exactly what it is. That language was foreign to me. I had not learned it. And the cost of not having learned it was that you lived in a relationship where everything was always pointing towards something that had not happened yet. And the moment you were actually standing in, the real moment, the only moment that ever actually exists, never quite received the full weight of my attention. You were always being loved in the direction of something else. Never simply loved, here, now, without a next thing attached to it. That is what I want to give you now. The kind of love that does not point anywhere. That simply lands. I have not always been honest about what I was doing. Not dishonest in the way that involves lying. I did not lie to you. But there is a quieter kind of dishonesty that I practice without naming it, which is the dishonesty of letting someone believe they had more of you than they actually did. Of allowing the impression of full presence while keeping the reality of it somewhere else. You thought, sometimes, that you were receiving the whole of me. And what you were receiving was the part of me that was not currently needed somewhere else. Whatever was left over. Whatever had not yet been claimed by the next urgent thing. I let you take that, and I let you call it enough. And it was not enough. It was never enough. And somewhere underneath all the adjustments you made, you knew it too. I am naming this clearly not to reopen something painful, but to close it properly, to say out loud what the shape of that dishonesty was, so that when I tell you what honesty looks like in its place, you understand that I know exactly what I am replacing, and why it needed replacing. Honesty, in the way I mean it now, is not just telling you the truth about facts. It is being truthful about where I am, whether my attention is fully with you, or whether something is pulling at it, whether I am in a good place or not, whether I need something I have not said I need. For years I did not practice that kind of honesty, because I believed it was a form of weakness to admit the interior workings of myself. I thought self-sufficiency meant self-containment. That a man who needed nothing was more trustworthy than a man who said out loud what he was carrying. But what I actually created by containing everything was a distance between us, a smooth, unblemished surface where closeness should have been. You cannot get close to a surface. You can only get close to someone who lets you in. And I had kept the door to the interior of myself locked so long, and so thoroughly that I had almost forgotten there was a door at all. I am opening it now. Not all at once. That would be its own kind of performance. The dramatic unburdening of everything at once in a way that asks you to carry it. What I mean is this. I am choosing, day by day, to be more honest about what is actually happening inside me. To say when something is hard. To say when I am uncertain. To say when I have made a mistake in the way I just spoke to you, or thought about something, or reacted. I am choosing to be visible to you in the interior way, not just the exterior way, not just what I do and what I build and what I accomplish, but what I feel, what I fear, what I am still learning, what I get wrong. That visibility is not comfortable for me. But I am choosing it over the comfort of containment because containment is what kept me at a distance from you. and I am done with distance. There is something I never said to you often enough, and it is one of the simplest things a person can say. I am going to say it now, and I want you to hear it not as words on a screen, but as the specific acknowledgement of a specific man who is speaking directly to you. You are not too much. You were never too much. Your needs were not excessive. Your desire to be heard, to be seen, to be chosen in a complete and unhurried way, those were not demands. They were the most basic and reasonable things a person can want from love. I made you feel at certain moments that asking for my full presence was asking for too much. That needing me to be truly here was somehow unreasonable given everything else I was carrying. That was wrong. The truth is that your needing me was not the problem. My not being present was the problem. And I let the responsibility for that leak in your direction, quietly, in ways I was not even fully conscious of, until you were carrying a kind of low-grade shame about wanting things you had every right to want. You had every right. Every single right. And I am sorry that you ever had reason to doubt that. What presence looks like in place of that particular absence is simple. I no longer treat your needs as interruptions. I treat them as the thing I am here for. When you need something from me, that need does not come at the wrong time. There is no wrong time for the person I love to need me. There is no project, no plan, no thought I am in the middle of that cannot pause long enough to let you be the priority. Not because I am performing consideration, but because I have genuinely reordered what I believe matters. And what I believe matters is this. A person's life is made of the moments they felt truly received by someone they loved. Not the moments they were impressed. Not the moments they were provided for. The moments they were received. I want to be the man who receives you, fully and without condition, for whatever time we have together going forward. Let me go one layer deeper into what being here actually means, because I said in the last stretch that presence is a practice, a set of small decisions made in the same direction over time. That is true. But underneath the practice is something that makes the practice possible. And that thing is the decision to believe that you are worth the full force of another person's attention. Not worth it when convenient. Not worth it when nothing else is demanding that attention. Worth it because you are a person, with a full interior life, with a history, with the particular and irreplaceable weight of your own experience. And that worth is not conditional. It does not rise and fall with whether I am busy. It does not get smaller on the days when I have more to do. You are the same person on my most demanding day as you are on my quietest one. And you deserve the same quality of my presence on both. That is not something I always gave you. I gave you more of me when it was easy to give more, and less when it cost something to be present. That is backwards. The days when presence costs something are the days when it matters most. And I am learning to spend it most freely exactly when it is hardest to give. Here is where the philosophical truth lives for me in this segment. And it comes from a specific cost. The cost of letting truth-telling inside a relationship become an event rather than a habit. When honesty is only practiced in large moments, in the big conversations, in the moments of crisis or decision, it creates a gap in all the ordinary time in between, where the two people are together, but not truly transparent to each other. I let that gap grow. And in that gap, you lived with a version of me that was curated, the part I was comfortable showing, the part that did not require me to be uncertain or soft, or admitting of something I did not know how to fix. The truth I am arriving at is this. Real intimacy lives in the small honesty, not the large one. It lives in the unremarkable moment when I tell you that I am tired, or that I am proud of you, or that I got something wrong an hour ago. It lives in the willingness to be ordinary and human and visible in the moments that do not feel significant enough to warrant the effort. All those moments, strung together, are what makes a person feel known. And I want you to feel known by me, truly, thoroughly, specifically known, not as a role in my life, not as a presence I was grateful to have, but as the particular woman you are, with everything that means. I have been learning what it means to pay that kind of attention. The kind that builds a real picture of someone over time. Not the picture I want to see. Not the picture that confirms what I already believe about you. The actual picture, the one that includes the parts of you that surprise me, the parts that challenge me, the parts that I do not immediately understand. I want to see all of it. Not the highlight version, not the version you would put forward if you thought you were being evaluated. The whole thing. And the only way to invite the whole thing is to offer the whole thing in return, to stop curating myself for you, and start simply being myself in front of you, with all the uncertainty, and the imperfection, and the genuine not knowing that a whole person carries. That is what is different now. I am not showing you the best version of myself, and hoping you do not look too closely at the rest. I am showing you the actual version, the one that is still learning, still getting things wrong sometimes, but is absolutely committed to being here, and honest, and fully turned toward you. Not for a season. Not until something else requires my attention. For as long as you will let me stand in this particular doorway, I am choosing to walk all the way through it. I have spent most of my life looking at large things, systems, structures, problems large enough that solving them would matter at a scale I could feel justified by. I trained my eyes to look outward and forward and wide, to scan for what was wrong at the biggest level, and then move toward fixing it. That kind of looking has its uses. But it is entirely wrong for love. Love is not a large thing to be scanned from a distance. Love is a small thing, seen up close, with your full attention on exactly one person. And the specific person I failed to look at closely enough was you. Not because you were not worth looking at, but because I had spent so many years training myself to look past the near thing toward the far thing that I had forgotten how to focus on what was right in front of me. You were right in front of me. And I was looking through you at something on the other side of the horizon. I am not looking at the horizon anymore. I am looking at you. And I want to tell you what I see, not because you need me to describe you to yourself, but because I want you to know that I am actually seeing it, that it is registering, that it is landing in me as something true and specific, rather than passing through on its way to somewhere else. I see the way you carry what is hard without asking everyone in the room to carry it with you. I see the particular kind of strength that does not announce itself, that simply continues, quietly, without requiring applause. I see the intelligence in the way you read a room, the way you understand people, the way you know things about human nature that I spent decades trying to understand through logic and kept missing because I was not paying the right kind of attention. I see the way you love, carefully, consistently, with a depth that does not dry up just because it is not being equally returned. I see all of that. I am seeing it clearly. And I want you to know that what I see is not ordinary. What I see is extraordinary in the specific way that ordinary life, lived with full integrity and full presence and full love, is extraordinary. More extraordinary, I am now certain, than anything I ever built. There is a kind of love I was capable of before that I would call love by a different name now. Before, I loved in the way that a man loves when he is still primarily in love with his own forward motion. He includes you in his life, genuinely, but you are included in the life, rather than being the center of it. He cares about you. He would not want you to go. But the care does not cost him the momentum. It fits around the edges of everything else. You felt that kind of love from me for longer than you deserved to. The love that fit around the edges. The love that was genuine but never quite primary. I am talking about it plainly because I think some part of you has been waiting to have it plainly acknowledged, not dramatized, not dressed in apology, just looked at directly and named for what it was. It was love, but it was not whole love. It was not the love that says, "You are the point of this. You are not the context in which I live my life. You are the reason." Whole love, the kind I am talking about now, the kind I am here to offer you, has a different weight. You can feel the difference between a man who loves you as a feature of his life and a man who loves you as the life itself. The first one is warmer than nothing but cooler than what you needed. The second one is what you have been deserving all along. What whole love looks like from the inside of my choosing it is this. When I am away from you, there is something missing in the quality of the day. Not dramatically, not in a way that undoes me. But there is a particular tone that is absent, a register that only you carry, and I notice its absence the way you notice when a familiar sound has stopped. When I am with you, that tone returns, and everything has more texture. That is not something I am performing for your benefit. That is the actual interior experience of a man who has realized, later than he should have, that the person he kept being pulled away from was the person he was most pulled toward. I want to stay where I am most pulled. That is new for me. I used to follow the pull of the next thing, always the next thing, always the urgency of what was coming. Now I am learning to follow a different pull, the one that leads not outward but toward you, toward the specific texture of your presence, toward the way a day feels when I am actually in it with you, rather than passing through it. I am following that pull now, all the way. I am not stopping halfway. I am not getting to the edge of it and turning back toward the familiar motion. I am following it completely, to the place it was always pointing, which is here, beside you, turned toward you, choosing you not as a conclusion I arrived at, but as the direction I have decided to keep moving in for the rest of whatever time I have. Now I want to say something about what choosing you looks like, specifically. Because choice, real choice, is not a single moment of decision. It is not one large gesture that announces itself and then asks to be trusted on the basis of its own drama. Real choice is made in the quiet moments that nobody is watching. It is made when I am tired and I choose to be patient anyway. It is made when something is pulling my attention and I redirect it toward you instead of following it. It is made in the moment when I could speak sharply and I choose softness. It is made when you need something from me that requires me to put down what I am doing, not with the body language of someone enduring an interruption, but with the genuine willingness of someone who has decided that what you need is more important right now than what I was in the middle of. Choice lives in those moments. It does not live in the announcements. And I am making those small choices, daily, consistently, with the understanding that they are not small at all. Each one is the larger choice, restated in the specific language of this particular moment. Let me name a specific kind of absence I carried that I have not named yet. The absence of celebration. I did not celebrate you enough. Not in the birthday and flowers sense, though those things matter too. I mean, I did not mark, often enough, the things you did and were and brought to the world. I did not say, out loud, with real specificity, this thing you did was remarkable. The way you handled that was better than most people could have. The way you see the world is something I have learned from even when I was not acknowledging that I was learning. I moved through the landscape of your gifts, as though they were the weather, present, real, affecting everything around me, but not something that required acknowledgement, because it was simply always there. That is the particular blindness of taking someone for granted. Not cruelty. Not indifference. Just the terrible ease of assuming that what has always been there will always be there, and that it does not need to be named out loud to be valued. I am naming it out loud now. What you bring to a room, to a conversation, to a relationship, to a life, it is not small. It does not go unnoticed anymore. I am paying attention to it specifically, and I am going to say so, regularly, not to fill a quota of acknowledgement, but because you deserve to hear it from a man who is actually looking closely enough to see it. That is what presence looks like in place of that absence. I witness you. I note what you do and how you do it and why it matters. And I tell you, simply, plainly, without it being an event, just the ordinary telling of someone who is paying attention and wants you to know. Here is the philosophical truth that has grown out of understanding this particular cost. The things we do not name tend to disappear. Not from reality, they are still there, but from the felt life of the relationship. When something real and good goes unnamed, it enters a kind of invisibility. The person who is doing the real and good thing eventually stops being certain that it is seen. And slowly, in ways they may not even notice themselves, they stop doing it as freely. Or they do it still, but with a weariness, the weariness of giving into a space that never fully receives. I created that weariness in you. I let the real and good things you did and were move into invisibility, because I did not turn enough of my attention toward naming them. Naming is not a small thing. Naming is how one person tells another, I see you. I was here for this. What you just did registered in me, and I want you to know. That is one of the most intimate things a person can offer. And I was not offering it nearly enough. I am offering it now. Fully. Specifically. In the unremarkable moments, and the significant ones both. When you say something that is true, I am going to say, that is exactly right, and I want you to hear it from me. When you handle something difficult, I am going to say, I watched you do that, and it mattered to me. When you are simply yourself, in the morning, in the quiet, in the ordinary way of moving through an ordinary hour, I am going to be present enough to see it, and honest enough to say that I am glad I was here to see it. Because I am. I am glad in a way that I was not always capable of being glad before, because being glad requires actually being here. And for the first time in a long time, I am. That fear is what made me absent in the deepest way. Not the distraction of work, not the pull of the next project, though those were real. Underneath all of it was this. I did not fully trust that I was worth staying for if I stopped being extraordinary. I did not know how to be ordinary with you. I did not know how to sit in a room with you as just a person, not an achiever, not a builder, not the man with the next large idea, just a human being who was tired sometimes, and uncertain sometimes, and needed sometimes to be held rather than admired. I protected you from all of that. I protected myself from your reaction to all of that. And in doing so, I created a space between us that was clean and managed, and thoroughly, devastatingly lonely. The loneliness of being known only partially. I I want to name that specifically because I do not think it is named enough. A man can be surrounded by people and still be lonely in the exact way I am describing, because loneliness is not about the number of people in the room. It is about whether any of them are seeing the real version of you, whether any of them are holding the actual weight of who you are rather than the surface version you have offered for their comfort and your own protection. I was lonely in that way for a long time. Not your fault. I created the conditions for it. I built the walls and then felt the chill of what was inside them. And the most painful part is that the person I kept at the careful distance was the one I most wanted close. You were the one I most wanted to be fully known by. And I kept you at exactly the distance my fear required. I am done with that distance. Not because the fear is entirely gone, I will not pretend that, but because I have decided that the cost of protecting myself from the risk of being known is higher than the cost of being known and found wanting. And here's what I have actually discovered on the other side of that decision. You were not waiting to find me lacking. You were waiting to be let in. You were not preparing a verdict. You were preparing to simply be there, fully, quietly, in the way you have always been there. If I would only open the door to the actual room and stop asking you to stand in the hallway of the impressive version of me. You already knew I was not perfect. You did not need perfection. You needed honesty. You needed me to be real with you. And I kept offering you polished instead, and somewhere deep in you, you knew the difference. The real version of me is someone who does not have all the answers about how to love well, who has made significant mistakes in the specific territory of closeness with another person, who learned, far later than he should have, that strength is not the same as invulnerability, and that the bravest thing a person can do is not to build something the world has never seen, but to stand in front of someone he loves and say, "Here I am, all of it. The parts that are certain and the parts that are not. The parts I am proud of and the parts I am still working on. Take the whole of it or tell me what you need me to change. But I am not going to hand you a curated version anymore and ask you to love it as though it were the truth. Here is the whole of it, as plainly as I know how to say it. I am a man who moved too fast for too long and missed things that mattered. I am a man who let his mind live in the future and shortchanged the present, including every present moment he could have been spending with you. I am a man who valued what he could build more than what he could feel, until the things he built started to feel hollow, because there was no one he had truly let in standing beside him inside them. I am a man who is learning, at this point in his life, the thing that perhaps should have been the first thing, that the whole of a life is not its output. It is not what was made or launched or changed or proven. The whole of a life is the quality of what happened between one person and another, in the real and unremarkable time they shared, when nothing was being built, and nothing was being proven, and it was just the two of them, present with each other, receiving each other, choosing each other in the small and daily way that is the only way it ever truly counts. I have not told you I loved you enough in the way that costs something to say. I have said the words. I believe I have said the words, but saying the words is easy. What is harder is saying them in a moment when you are not impressive, when you are just yourself, when you have no achievement to stand behind, and nothing to offer but your actual presence and your actual care. I have not done that enough. I have let the words of love arrive, wrapped in context that made them comfortable, in good moments, in high moments, in moments when everything felt straightforward, and being in love felt like the easiest thing in the world. What I did not do enough was say it in the ordinary moments, the Tuesday evening moments, the moments when nothing was happening and there was no occasion for it. I want to say it in all those moments now. I want to say it when it is not convenient, not decorated, not impressive. I want to say it plainly, on a day with nothing remarkable in it, because that is when it is most true, when love does not need a reason or a backdrop or an occasion, when it simply is what it is, right now, in this room between us. You deserve to be chosen. Not once, not in one declaration that I then expect to carry indefinitely. Chosen again, regularly, in the specific ways that only I can choose you, because only I know you this way. Chosen in the way I listen when you are tired. Chosen in the way I stay when staying requires something from me. Chosen in the way I show up on the days when showing up does not feel easy, and I do it anyway, because you are the reason I am orienting in this direction. That kind of choosing is not dramatic. It does not look like anything from the outside, but it is felt. You will feel it. That is the kind of choosing I am here to do. Now let me go to the layer underneath, even that, because I said in the earlier stretch that every few segments, presence goes one layer deeper, and this is that layer. It is this. I am not only learning to be present with you, I am learning that being present with you is the thing that makes me more fully myself. This is the reversal I did not expect. I thought presence was something I was giving, a resource I was offering, something I had and was choosing to direct toward you. What I have discovered is that it is also something I receive. That being truly here, with you, in the specific quality of your company, is the thing that makes me feel most like a real person. Not most like an impressive person, most like a real one. Most like someone whose life is actually happening to him, rather than someone who is managing his life from a slight remove. You bring me into the present in a way nothing else does. Your realness calls me into realness. Your groundedness calls me out of abstraction. The way you see things plainly, with honesty, without the layers of calculation I tend to move through, reminds me that there is a way of being in the world that does not require the complexity I have always defaulted to. You are the simplest and truest compass I have ever had, and I spent too long ignoring the direction you were pointing me in. Here is the philosophical truth of this segment, arrived at through the cost of having protected myself from being known. The risk of being truly seen by someone is not the risk of rejection. That is the fear, but it is the wrong fear. The actual risk of being truly seen is far more tender than that. The actual risk is that you will be seen and accepted, that you will let someone all the way in and they will stay. And then you will have to admit that the walls you built were never protection at all. They were just distance. And the life you could have been living fully, openly, in the warmth of actual closeness, was available the whole time, waiting on the other side of your own reluctance. That is what I have discovered. The walls were not keeping me safe. They were keeping me alone. And I am done being alone in the particular way that requires another person's presence to sustain itself. I want to be with you. Really with you. No walls between us. No curated version offered in the place of the real one. Just the actual man, standing in the actual room, turning toward the actual woman he has finally chosen with every part of himself. There is a question I have been carrying. Not because I did not know the answer. I have known the answer for longer than I have been ready to say it out loud. I have been carrying it because a question this large deserves to be asked by the full version of a man, not the partial one. It deserves to arrive after everything I have just said to you, after the honest naming, after the return, after the practice of presence has already begun, and is already real, and already something you can feel rather than just hear me describe. A question like this should not arrive before the man who is asking it has actually shown up. I did not want to ask it from a distance. I did not want to say these words while still being the man I was, absent in all the ways that matter, present only in the ways that were convenient. So I waited. I stayed with it. I let myself become someone who could ask it honestly, with the full weight of what it means, without flinching away from what I was committing to. And now I am here, and the question is ready. And so, I believe, am I. I want to marry you. Not because it is the next logical step. Not because the time seems right in some external, measurable sense. But because marriage, the real kind, the kind that is not a ceremony but a daily choosing, not a single yes, but 1,000 subsequent ones, is the most complete form of presence I know how to offer. It is the act of saying, I am not leaving. Not when it is easy, not when it is hard, not when the world is pulling at me from every direction, and there are 100 things demanding to be the most important. You are the most important. That does not change. And I want to make that unchanging nature official, not for the world, not for the record, but for you. So that you know, in the deepest and most unambiguous way I know how to communicate it, that this is not temporary, that you are not a season I am passing through, that you are the place I have chosen to be, permanently, with everything I have. I want you to understand what I mean when I say I want to marry you. I do not mean I want to add you to my life as it currently exists. I do not mean I want the comfort of you alongside the life I was already living, unchanged, as though you were a welcome addition to an existing arrangement. I mean I want to build the life around you, around us, around the specific shape of what we are together when I am fully here, and you are fully yourself, and nothing between us is curated, or protected, or managed from a safe distance. I want the real version of a life with the real version of you, and I want to stand in front of whatever witness you choose and say so out loud, formally, with the full commitment of a man who understands exactly what he is saying and has chosen it without reservation. I have not always understood what a commitment like that requires. I want to be honest about that too. I thought, in earlier parts of my life, that commitment was primarily about staying, about not leaving in the physical sense, about maintaining the structure of a relationship even through its hard stretches. I have learned that staying in the room is the beginning of commitment, not the whole of it. The whole of it is staying present within the staying. It is choosing, inside every ordinary day, to be the man who shows up emotionally as well as physically. To be the man who is reachable, not just accessible, not just nearby, but genuinely reachable in the interior sense. You have to be able to reach me and find me actually there. Not a recording of me, not the outline of me, not the version of me that responds on autopilot while the real version is somewhere else entirely. The actual man, in the actual moment, available to be met. That is what I am committing to. Not as a claim about who I already perfectly am. As a direction I have fully and irreversibly turned toward. Let me tell you what I imagine. Not in a sweeping, cinematic way. I am done with the cinematic version of myself. In a plain and specific way, because plain and specific is where real things live. I imagine waking up beside you and my first thought not being about what needs to be built today, but about whether you slept well. I imagine having a quiet morning with you where nothing is produced and nothing is accomplished, and both of us are simply in the day, together, and that being entirely enough. I imagine sitting across from you at an ordinary meal and telling you something I realized about myself that I have not said out loud yet, and you receiving it without judgment, and me receiving what you say back with the same lack of judgment, and us being two people who are genuinely known to each other, in the way that only happens when two people have stopped trying to manage each other's impression of them. I imagine the evenings. The unremarkable evenings. The ones where nothing is happening, and the texture of the time is made entirely of your presence beside me and mine beside you. And that being, without exaggeration, the best version of a day I can conceive of. I imagine the hard days too. I am not only imagining the easy ones because I have learned that committing to the easy version of something is not really committing at all. I imagine the days when I get something wrong, when I slip back for a moment into old patterns, when the pull of the old motion is strong, and I do not handle it as well as I should. I imagine what it means to come back from that, not with a grand gesture, but with honest acknowledgement and the recommitment that is quieter and more real than any first commitment. I am going to get things wrong sometimes. I am naming that honestly because I would rather name it now than have it arrive as a surprise. What I will not do is get it wrong, and then disappear from the discomfort of having gotten it wrong. What I will do is stay, turn toward it, turn toward you, say what happened, and why, and what I am going to do differently. That is the marriage I am asking for, not a perfect one, but a real one. Not a performed one, but a lived one. One where we are both allowed to be human, and being human does not cost either of us the safety of the other. You have waited. I am aware of that. Not passively, you have continued to live, to love, to be fully yourself in the waiting. But you have waited for this version of me to arrive, the version that is all the way here. The version that has finished being somewhere else, and has come home, not to a place, but to you. To the specific quality of your presence, and your warmth, and your way of moving through the world that I want to be near for the rest of my life. You have been patient in a way that I did not always deserve. And I am not asking you to reward my eventual arrival by saying yes before you are certain. I am asking you to feel what I am telling you, not in the words, but underneath them, in the quality of my being here as I say it. In the difference between this and every other time I said something that sounded like it was about you, but was still, somehow, primarily about me. This is about you. This question is about you. It is not about what having you means for my life, though that is real, and it is enormous. It is about what I can be for yours, what I can offer you now that I was not offering before. Not money, not achievement, not proximity. Presence. Real, daily, unhurried, fully committed presence. The kind that notices the small things. The kind that stays through the hard things. The kind that does not require you to make yourself smaller in order to fit inside the edges of what I am willing to give. The full and undivided version of a man who has finally learned the difference between being in a life and actually living it, and who wants, more than anything he has ever wanted, to live it with you. Here is the philosophical truth of this final segment, and it is the one that all the others have been building toward. Love is not a feeling that happens to you. It is a direction you choose to keep moving in, every day, regardless of what is pulling you elsewhere. The feeling, the warmth, the wanting, the way her presence makes the room fuller, that is real, and it is the beginning. But the love that lasts, the love that holds through all the ordinary and difficult and unremarkable days, is the love that is chosen repeatedly, in the moments when choosing costs something. I have spent most of my life choosing the extraordinary over the ordinary. I have spent most of my life believing that the large and impressive choice was the meaningful one. I know now that the most meaningful choice I will ever make is the small and daily one to turn toward you this morning and the next morning and the morning after that, with the full force of my attention and my care and my genuine, uncurated self. That is what I am choosing. That is what I am asking you to let me choose, formally and finally, for the rest of whatever life I have left to spend well. So I am asking, quietly, without performance, without the dramatic backdrop I might once have constructed to make the moment feel appropriately significant. I am asking in plain language, with plain intent, as a man who is standing fully in the room for the first time in a very long time and wants you to feel that he is here. All the way here. Not halfway. Not in between two other things. Here, with you, in this moment, with nothing more important anywhere else in the world. Will you marry me? Not because of what I have built. Not because of what I can provide. Because I am finally, and without reservation, the man who is asking, and because I will spend every day after your answer being the man who proves that this question was not the peak of my presence, but the beginning of it.